We got a hold of Dale Jr. yesterday. He's in Las Vegas, retirement, the awards ceremony there. And we talked about a wide variety of things. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. joining us. And the first thing I asked him was, how's retirement?
It's going great. It's only been a few days, but it's hard to tell really what my future is going to look like. As far as my schedule, I've always had with racing, I could plan my schedule out 6 to 10 months in advance. I knew exactly where I was going to be every weekend and what I needed to be doing. And with moving into the broadcast booth, I have no idea what the first 6 months of the year is going to look like. I know I'm going to be preparing a lot for that job, and I'm going to make myself as available to that as I can, because I think I need to be, as green as I am to broadcasting, I got so much to learn. But I have no idea what I'm going to be doing with my time. Hopefully it's going to be fun, and we've got some exciting ideas, and I'm going to rest a little bit. Hopefully in December and January we get a little time to take it easy, and then we got the baby coming in May, and hopefully that month I can spend a lot of time helping Amy with that.
You got names picked out?
We do. We started a list on our phones that we share, and I had a lot of names that I liked, but all those got sent into the trash can. And I was on Jim Kimmel's show a couple of days ago, and I said, man, I was really surprised that I really wanted to be involved in picking the name, but I guess it's really up to her. And he said, well, you could carry the baby if you wanted to, then you could get to name it. So I'm learning as I go that that's really going to be down to her, but she's got some great ideas, and whatever she chooses is going to be just perfect.
All right, if it was a boy and you had to name it after a NASCAR driver, current NASCAR driver.
My gosh. Oh, man, that's a tough call. Kyle Larson's a cool name. I think Chase Elliott, that's a cool name, and Ryan Blaney. I mean, all these young kids are coming in with all these racy names.
I like it.
So, yeah, I think Chase Blaney.
Chase Blaney? How about?
I don't know,
How about Speed?
Who?
Speed Earnhardt.
Yes. Okay, Speed Earnhardt. I like that.
Well, then you tell Amy you get to name the girl and I get to name the boy.
Yeah, well, the thing is that when we got married, we were already talking about names, and we've had the boy's name for 2 years, so that was really easy. And we couldn't come up with a girl's name. We we're still working on that.
What are you going to miss the most?
I'm going to miss my team. It's like those guys there with the show helping you. I mean, that's your boys, and y'all work and fight together every day and try to put together the best show you can every day, and those will be the people that you miss the most when all this is over. And so I'm going to miss all the mechanics, the road guys that I've worked with. Some of them I've worked with for 5-6 years straight, and in those moments when you're racing and practicing together, you'll never be able to recreate that intensity and that bond and brotherhood that you have. So I'm going to miss them because they're great people, they're great friends. I mean, I'll still have those relationships and be able to see them, but not quite as often, and we won't be able to go to battle together like we used to. I'll miss those moments of working together with those guys.
What won't you miss?
I won't miss the drivers' meetings. They were always kind of more of a show than anything. When the drivers' meetings, when I was a kid and I'd get to go to a drivers' meeting, it was only the drivers in the building. There were just the drivers. And so there's a lot of communication between the drivers and the officials. And the drivers' meetings turned into more of a spectacle where it's a bit of a show for there's tons of fans and CEOs of companies, and it's less about the instructions you're getting about the race and more about introducing everybody and playing a lot of loud music, and it's kind of more of a send-off for the drivers than anything. And there's definitely no communication from the drivers to the officials anymore, because none of the drivers are too nervous to speak up with all those people in there. But there's a couple other things that I won't miss. But for the most part, it's funny, I hated testing. I didn't like practicing that much. I really did. I hated traveling and being away from home. I didn't like really much about driving race cars or being in the sport when I started. And by the time I got to the final season, all the things that I didn't like, I loved. I loved practicing. Yeah, I was like, what has happened to me? I love practicing. I want to go test with the guys. I want to be, as you're counting down those final races and getting into that last season, you start to realize, like, this stuff's not all that bad. It's actually a lot of fun, and the relationships and stuff that you have make it that much better. So I enjoyed the travel. I started cycling with Jimmy Johnson and Matt Kenseth and Daniel Suarez, and there was a whole bunch of drivers that were cycling, and we'd go ride every Friday between practice and qualifying. So I was getting outside the racetrack and seeing all these areas that we're going to race at that I'd never been to before. I'd been to Kansas 100 times to race, never been outside the racetrack, never saw anything 5 miles down the road. And we're going out and riding 30, 40 miles and seeing how incredible this country is, and how beautiful it is. So I wish I'd have picked that up or took the initiative to do that sooner in my career. It's definitely a lot more enjoyable. I was a bit of a hermit and introvert and stayed in the bus and wouldn't go anywhere, wouldn't go to dinner. I'd always just hang out in the bus, play video games, and cook and eat there. And
why?
I missed out on – I was like, I don't need to leave the track. Why should I leave the track? What if something happens? What if I'm needed to be there? Or what if I just couldn't imagine why you would want to leave the track or need to leave the track. I know it sounds silly, but
were you too famous, though, that you couldn't really enjoy yourself?
No. It was nothing to do with that. I just didn't think going outside the track was enjoyable. I wanted to be in the bus, just hanging out. And once I met Amy, and she's like, I can't sit in here all weekend. This is crazy. We're going to eat. I'm like, oh man, this sucks. I don't want to go eat. And so I start going out and enjoying. I just felt like I couldn't release from being at the track and being a driver and focusing on the car and practicing. I feel like I couldn't loosen my grip on that. And if I drove out of the track for dinner somewhere down the street, that was me being too carefree. I just wasn't comfortable with that. But she showed me how to enjoy myself and still, be a race car driver. And it's happened late in my career, and this last season was what probably the least stressful of all of them, because I wasn't pent up in that bus or hanging out in the holler all day, just kind of chewing my fingernails and wondering about what's next on the race car.
But do you think that people would have viewed that as you weren't taking it as serious as you should, or in your mind you're saying, if I get outside of here, then I'm losing focus on what I'm supposed to be doing as a driver?
Well, I guess that's kind of what I felt. I felt like that I had to be inside the track at all times. The moment I got there on the weekend till I left after the race, that I couldn't leave the track. I just felt like that. What if something happened? What if I was needed to be there, even in the middle of the night? I don't really know what that's about, but that was just me as an introvert. If anybody knows, what being an introvert's like, you just kind of buckle yourself down in a shell, and you're not very social, and you're kind of socially awkward in a lot of situations, to be honest with you. And so you avoid those opportunities. And I was really shy, and wasn't comfortable going out on my own and interacting and socially interacting. After a few beers or something somewhere, I would loosen up. But it wasn't until I met Amy that sort of got that confidence and got more comfortable kind of in my own skin, and definitely loosened up a little bit and started to enjoy myself.
Did you ever go to therapy?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been in therapy in and out of my whole life. I mean, I was in therapy as a child, and definitely think that therapy is useful, a very useful tool. If you meet the right therapist, I met a lady named Jane that I've worked with on and off over the last several years, and she has changed my life. And if you meet the right person that you can trust and you listen and sort of absorb what they're telling you, it can be incredibly helpful. So,
but as a child, though, that's different.
Yeah, I think it was different. As a child, it was hard to open up and understand why you were there, what was going on, or what was the reason for being there. But man, I was a troubled kid. I got kicked out of a Christian school, or was going to get kicked out of a Christian school. I got sent to military school for a year and a half, and I didn't really have much direction, till I got the opportunity to drive race cars, and was really probably more of a disappointment, I think, than anything up until probably around 1996, 97 when I started driving an Xfinity Series for a couple races for Dad, and started showing, hey, there's some purpose for me here, and here's some direction for me. But as a child, I was, having divorced parents, and then the fire. We were living with my mom in a mill house near Concord Mills of Kannapolis that caught fire when I was 5, 6 years old. So I'm standing outside in the yard in the morning watching our house burn down. My mom is broke and doesn't have, she has nowhere to turn, so she had to move back to Norfolk, Virginia to live with her mother because that's the only place she could go. And she made the very difficult choice to give up custody of me and my sister at that moment to my dad because she knew that he could provide for us and give us this better life. And so I was at my mom's watching her house burn down in the morning, and then that evening I was at my dad's house rummaging through my toy box in the garage, seeing if all my toys had made the trip. And that's difficult. So I probably needed some therapy through all that.
What'd your dad think of all this?
Of the
like growing up
in custody of the kids?
No. Being like you were angry or revolting against something.
Oh,
yeah.
I was just wanting his attention. I was just doing anything. I didn't know it because I didn't really want his attention in a negative way. I didn't want whoopings and all that stuff. But I think my sister says that I was always kind of acting out and trying to get his attention. Kelly would do things like get good grades, what you're supposed to do to try to get his attention, and I was doing whatever I could to. I felt like the only way I could get him to talk to me or notice me was if I did something wrong or rebelled and fought back or whatever, made things difficult. I don't think I did those things on purpose, but my sister swears I did. But he wasn't around. It wasn't like we were, interacting all the time. He would come home he would work in his shop all day long, and then he would drive home and get to the house around 9, 10 o'clock. It's time for us to go to bed, and we're dying for just 5 minutes of his time. We just want just 5 minutes just to see him and say, hey. And he would come in and sit in his lazy boy in the living room, and you would sit on the couch and ask him questions, and he would not even answer your questions. He was so tired and wore down and so much on his mind about his racing career. This is back in the mid-'80s when he was sort of kind of struggling to find his, right the ship, so to speak. And it was a difficult time. But I think that he was really frustrated, I think, for a long time with me and who I was going to become and what kind of kid or what kind of person I was going to grow up to be. And as soon as, it really clicked when we got in the race car and started. He said, hey, I don't know if he thought I could drive a race car or not, because he never saw me race in the late model series from 92 to 96. He never saw a race. I ran 159 late model races. I don't think he saw one of them. He was just going off of people's opinions that of whether I had any talent or not. But once I got an Xfinity car, we went to Michigan and ran in the top 10 and right there in front of him. And it was, he said, hey, this is all right. So we started talking about the future.
We'll continue with Dale Jr. As I told you, went down a road I didn't think we were going down, talking about therapy. And imagine you're 5 years old and you're watching your mom's house burn down, and next thing you know, your mom is giving you back to your father, trying to figure all that out and going into therapy. And your dad doesn't see you race, doesn't know if you can race. You're acting out. You got a famous dad. And just trying to find yourself. So, as I said when we started the interview, he's as honest as anybody I think we've ever had here. Proud to know him. We'll come back. Part 2, I talked to him about if he didn't get into racing, what would he have done, and would he consider being the president of NASCAR? Dale Jr., Part 2 coming up. We were only going to talk 10 minutes, and I think we talked 21 minutes. But spent a lot of time talking about being in therapy, talking about his father, a lack of a relationship. He acted out. He just wanted to be noticed. His dad didn't even know he could race cars. But he's come a long way. Age 43 with a baby on the way, now retiring, going to work for NBC with their coverage of NASCAR. And I started out part 2 of the interview by asking him if he didn't get into racing, what would he be doing?
I was working at my dad's dealership as a service mechanic. I was changing oil, so they had they had a deal where you could get it was this 29 minutes or less quick lube, where you got the oil changed and pretty much everything in your car looked at. Good 6,000 or 3,000 mile service on your car. And I was the only mechanic in there doing those. I did that for a couple of years. I worked with the assistant engine guy pulling, like if he had an engine job or a transmission job to do, I pulled the tranny or I pulled the broke engine, and then he'd put the new stuff in. And I went to a technical college and got an automotive degree in Statesville, North Carolina. And so that's what I was doing, and it was fun. You know, I really enjoyed it. I took a lot of pride in it. I kept my stuff clean. You know, you saved your money. The tool man would come once a week, and you'd want this new cool tool. And I was right there in the middle of it, the Christmas parties and all that. I mean, it was just a normal life, you know, and that's what I didn't think racing was going to work because, like I said, I ran those 159 late model races. I only won 3 of them. I ran into top 5 a lot, but I just wasn't winning enough races that I thought that I would get an opportunity beyond that. And the money was drying up. We run out of money to run our late model car in 1997. We only ran 8 races. Dad just point blank told me, said, "We don't have any more money. I'm not paying for this." So we had a sponsor, and that went away. And when it was come down to him paying for it himself, he wasn't willing to do that. So we only ran a couple races, and luckily enough, that same year, I got an opportunity to an Xfinity car, the Busch Series at the time, to run, and ran well enough to get the chance to drive the car full time in 1998. But I think if I wasn't racing, I'd be a mechanic in either automotive dealerships, or I might be a mechanic on the road and for a race team. You know, who's to say I wouldn't be working in motorsports as a mechanic or a road crew?
Would you want to be the president of NASCAR down the road?
Would I want to be? I don't really know. I mean, it's not as easy to fix, you know, it's not as easy to come up with a solution for everything. A lot of people have opinions about, you know, things that's going on in the sport, and the sport's in a really good place, in my opinion, personally, but everybody has opinions on what could be different. It's not really easy to come up with those solutions. And the other side of that, too, is that no matter what you come up with, people are going to bash it, or somebody, you know, some's going to love it, some's going to hate it.
Yep.
You're never going to win. But you know, I think it would be interesting to be in those conversations, to be in those boardroom meetings, to understand a little bit more about what's going on and how they come to decisions that they come to. And I'm sure, you know, there's a lot more moving parts than myself and a lot of the people know that make up the decisions they have. So
is that a yes or no?
I don't think I would want to be a president of NASCAR, nor do I think I would be a great president for the sport. I think that I could be just underneath that in maybe a Mike Hilton style role or a Steve O'Donnell style role where, you know, I have some influence, but there's, you know, I think the France family should and always should be the leaders of the sport. I mean, they're the ones who brought this together and created it. But I think that it would be fun, and I do believe I could, you know, it would be something I would be good at if I could be an influence in the sport some way, somehow.
I think you should take the RV, take the family, and just go around to Redskins games next year.
I mean, well, why not? That sounds like a lot of fun. They are better. They are more fun to watch these last couple of years as the defense has gotten better. But I don't know. You know, it's funny. I get invited to go see them play away, but I don't feel comfortable. What is that about? I don't feel comfortable going into the opponent's
stadium.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Like when if they play the Panthers, or Cowboys especially, I cannot go to Cowboys Stadium.
Do you hate the Cowboys?
I don't like them. Yes.
Do you hate them?
It's a strong word. Yeah, sure. I mean, okay. We play them this weekend, so
yeah.
It's a game. It's a must-win. I grew up in a family that had, you know, a lot of Cowboys fans in it, and it's been a tug of war all my life. And so, yeah, I want them to win, beat Dallas. Beating Dallas is probably the most important thing of the season, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens in all the other games, they got to beat Dallas the 2 times they play them. But it's been they've been playing pretty good, man. I mean, there's injuries. Gosh, it seems like this year there's like 3 times or 4 times more injuries across the league.
I know.
Especially with the Redskins, man. They've lost a lot of key guys. I mean, their IR list looks like a starting lineup. It's just been very difficult for the team, but they've played well even despite the injuries they've had.
All right, a final question. It's a serious one. More surprising that you're retiring or Tony Stewart's engaged?
I think the surprise is Tony Stewart's engagement. And the fact that he's riding a bike. He's cycling now.
I didn't know that you could get that body into bicycle shorts.
I didn't either. Everybody just assumed it was Photoshop. But it's real. It's a real photo. And I've talked to him personally, and he has admitted that he has taken up cycling because he's trying to get himself in better shape. And I think that this whole engagement and this woman in his life is obviously having a positive effect on him. So it's going to be exciting. Hopefully, hopefully there's kids in their future and all that good stuff. I think all of us would love to see how that affects Tony going down the road. But
yeah,
I got to hang out with him last night, so he's in great shape. And he's mentally and
not physically
health-wise and
no.
Physically, no, I think he's actually getting in better shape physically. He's riding this bike. He's pretty committed to things like that. I mean, when he takes something up like that, he's not going to get in that spandex just to try it out. I think that he's in. I think he's bought in.
Yeah, I thought when you said that you were hanging out with him, you were talking about his belly hanging out. I thought that was kind of mean-spirited, but that's not true, right?
Dan, we're going to have to jump in the call.
Okay. Hey, Junior, have fun tonight, and thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dan. Sorry, I got to run.
Okay. So that's how the interview ended. They're pulling him out the door. We were only supposed to go 10 minutes, and that was the PR person jumping in there.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.